All right, folks, so we have breaking news on the foreign front. And joining us now in the Malzberg panel to talk about it, retired Major General in the U.S. Army and founder of Stand Up America, Paul E. Vallely, and LIGNET Chief Analyst Fred Fleitz. Gentlemen, 1,000 Russian troops in Ukraine. Is that what we might consider, General, a full-scale invasion?
Well, I think as part of Putin's phase two strategy, his grand strategy, I think there's two things. It's the military operation, but I think there's also an economic energy part of this in this phase two. But evidently, two armored brigades with tanks and APCs and even a missile launch capability has been put in, and they're operating, I understand, about 8 miles within the Ukraine border. So he's pursuing his what I call his phase two strategy, Steve.
And Fred, phase two, and what to what ends?
I think Putin has always intended to do this. He simply can't let these pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine be defeated by the Ukrainian government. But the point I want to note is that there's a reason Putin is doing this right now. He sees the world, especially the United States, distracted by ISIS and the situation in Iraq and Syria. He's had this stealth campaign for quite some time to go into Ukraine. He's seizing an opportunity.
All right, what then is the ultimate goal here, General? You say phase two of how many anticipated phases with the stated purpose or the unstated purpose, but the purpose in his mind of accomplishing exactly what, do you believe?
Well, I think the phase two is, a 30 to 60 day operation here to completely destabilize Ukraine because of the natural gas and the capability that Russia has to shut down a lot of that into the Ukraine. And I think he would move towards and then perhaps sign some sign of an agreement before winter sets in.
Fred?
I believe
Agreed?
Putin wants to set up enclaves in eastern Ukraine for the pro-Russian separatists. He also wants to secure a road that links Crimea with Russia. Whether he's going to try to destabilize the rest of the country, I think that's possible, but at least these objectives, I think, are likely.
All right, and what are we likely to do, Fred? Is the president even going to address this at all? I mean, I know he's got a meeting today at 4 o'clock about ISIS. Could he even comprehend or program this at the same time as he's dealing with ISIS? Or is the general, to the general's point, is this just, he's taking advantage of the ISIS distraction?
I don't really think there's a lot the United States can do to Putin. We can up the sanctions, but Putin seems intent on ignoring the pressure that we're putting on him. But bear in mind, Russia's been engaged in this activity for some time, and we've refused to call them on it. These humanitarian convoys coming into Ukraine, everyone knew that this was an invasion. The U.S. has been reluctant to call it that. Mr. Obama has to at least first publicly acknowledge that Russia has invaded Ukraine.
Yeah, and what's the likelihood of that happening, General?
Well, I think, again, it shows the ineptness and the amateurism of the national security team that we have. That's why we're pushing for a no confidence resolution in Congress to replace this entire national security team. They seem to be clueless, and they're putting us in great jeopardy. And Putin sees that, as Fred said, he sees us as a weak country right now with any leadership whatsoever. And of course, that's what they're seeing in the Middle East as well, as a weak United States. That's why this national security team cannot remain on duty any longer. They need to be replaced.
Well, one of the members meeting with the national security team, we've been told today, John Kerry, weighing in on ISIS, goodness help us, God help us, and that meeting will be taking place at 4 o'clock. I don't know why they feel compelled to tell us that. But also, there's a report now out of the West Point Counterterrorism Center that ISIS has been 4 years in the making, Fred. And, this flies in the face of the president's public statements to the United States, to the U.S. people, that, hey, we just found out about this basically on CNN like everything else.
Well, I would say that ISIS has been in the making since the United States withdrew from Iraq just after we pulled out in 2011, sectarian tensions intensified, and there were real signs of the development of ISIS in the spring of last year. Now, I haven't seen this West Point report. Maybe they can date it back further. But I'd say, I mean, the Langley Intelligence Group Network, LIGNET, we've been talking about this for at least a year. And I think the president had more than adequate warning that this is going to happen.
Yeah, General, just more same old as an excuse from this administration?
Well, it is, but when you track back to the West Point study, and as Fred had said, of course they've been planning it for years, but when I was inside Syria last year, the noticeability of the Al-Qaeda forces ramping up and recruiting into that area, and our Free Syrian Army liaison teams over there were reporting it. I even saw some Al-Qaeda outposts as I passed by them going to Aleppo, but they've been able to build that up now to the full fruition of a ISIS army now, and are executing their plan accordingly. Now, whether it's 2 years or 4 years, but when they morphed Al-Qaeda forces within the last 24 months into the full-fledged ISIS, this is what has happened as a result of it.
And Fred, what's the chance that we're going to bomb ISIS in Syria and maybe not tell the world in advance that we're going to do it?
I think the president is moving towards bombing ISIS positions in Iraq and in Syria. And I'd like to hear the general's view on this. ISIS is not going to be defeated by air power alone. There's some talk that the U.S. and the U.K. are preparing something called Task Force Black, a joint special forces operation, to attack ISIS in Syria and Iraq. I don't know whether Mr. Obama will accept that recommendation, but ISIS is not going to be destroyed unless they're engaged on the ground. And I think he has to start talking to his supporters in Congress on that point.
General, when we come back, I want you to weigh in on that. Then we'll turn a little bit towards Hamas, Israel, and what's going on at the Golan Heights. Stay where you are. We're here with Fred Fleitz and General Paul E. Vallely, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll be back with part 2 of the, what did I say? LIGNET Chief Analyst Fred Fleitz. And we'll be back with part 2 of the Malzberg panel after the break. But first, your Newsmax Now update, and here's how you can reach us to comment on this show.